Assalamualaikum and a very good day, everyone. So our group will be presenting on pandemic of COVID-19 and its impact on agriculture economic sector. So this is our group members. Now I will pass the mic to Winnie.
Okay, so our research is on how pandemic of COVID-19 and its impact on agriculture economic sector in details such as what happened to the demand and supply of agriculture. Next, for the introduction, in this presentation, we will include the important economic topics such as demand and supply, production possibility curves, also known as PPC, optimal production, unemployment, economic growth and recession, and lastly, government policy or incentive to cope with this COVID-19 recession. Next, I will pass back the mic to Muklis to present to us about the demand and supply and PPC.
So for the demand, during this COVID-19 outbreak, there has been a slight increase in demand. Food demand is generally inelastic because there is a possibility of disproportionately larger decline in animal protein consumption. This is because people fear that animal might be the host of the virus, which make the demand for this product like fruits, vegetables to increase. Demand for poorer countries is more depending on the income. Loss of income earning could impact on the consumption. The activities such as visiting the food market also has been reduced. As we can see, how people move from eating at the restaurant into buy and consume food at home. This can be seen by the rate of restaurant traffic has dropped and e-commerce deliveries rises. This is because people prefer to eat at home. Next is for the supply. Following the outbreak of coronavirus, countries around the world started to implement a number of policies to avoid the further spread of the disease. However, such measures might affect agricultural production and trade. For instance, many countries are implementing high controls on cargo vessels with the risk of jeopardizing shipping activities and with a particular risk to perishable goods like fruits and vegetables. Measures affecting the free movement of people, such as seasonal workers, might have an impact on food production, thus affecting market prices globally. Measures to guarantee acceptable health standards in food factories may slow down production. The importation of agriculture products also have been affected. This is because the government will try to reduce the spreading of the virus, which led to less supply for imported agriculture products. For the PPC, the production of agriculture products also decreases. This is because government want to avoid the virus from spreading. So industries are asked to be shut down, which causes the production of agriculture products to decrease. The supply for agriculture goods are very limited since the importation for outside goods have been cut off and local industries have been shut down. This causes the PPC to shrink or move inward. Next, I will pass the mic to Amsha to explain on the optimal production.
Thank you, Muklis. So based on the graph, stage 1 begins from the origin until the epi curve reach its maximum point or until point of intersection between MP and epi curves occur, when the numbers of variable inputs labor employed are small relative to its fixed input length is underutilized with the unit of labor as both inputs are used in the better proportions. Based on the graph, when one unit of labor is employed, the output also increases simultaneously. This is the law of increasing marginal returns because extra workers allow the firm organize the workforce more efficiently. By specialization or division of labor in stage 1, there is a sharp increase in the TP curve. TP curve is increasing at an increasing rate. Note that the MP curve rises, but it begins to fall after the more unit of labor is employed. The addition of extra workers and less to the total output due to the negative impact of pandemic to the economy. The firm is already heavily impacted as their margin as the customer tighten up their budget of expenditure. Hence, it's proof that it's not a wise choice to employ more labor at this timing. As we can see, the extra worker is causing the decline in marginal output. Stage 2 begins after MP interest epi point C at its maximum until the MP curve equals to 0, which is at point B. The TP curve is at its maximum point at point D when MP curve is equal to 0. The value of AP and MP will decrease but still remain positive. The AP curve is above the MP curve at stage 2 when more labor is added to land. TP will increase at a decreasing rate. This implies that the additional units of labor employed will result in decreasing MP, meaning every new worker employed contributes lesser and lesser to the TP. A rational producer will stop producing at this stage because production TP has reached its maximum point. Stage 2 is the most efficient stage of production because the combination between fixed and variable input is efficient as both inputs are fully utilized. At this stage, there is no wastage and employment. Stage 3 begins when the MP is negative. The TP curve starts to fall. The AP will also fall but still remains positive. The AP will never be negative as long as the TP is positive. At stage 3, TP will stop increasing and start to decline. The graph shows that the TP starts to decline and the MP become negative in stage 3 when more units of workers are employed. A rational producer will not produce any output at this stage because an additional one more unit of labor to fix input, the total product will decrease and the MP becomes negative. Hence, the combination between the fixed and variable input is not economical because the workspace becomes overcrowded as more workers are employed. Optimal production is at stage 2 as combination between fixed and variable input is efficient, both input fully utilized and there is no wastage. Thank you. So I pass the mic to Winnie.
Okay, thank you, Amsha, for explaining to us about the optimal production. I'm Lo Ying Peng, and now I'm going to present about the unemployment. So unemployment occurs when people who are in the working age group are able and willing to work, but they are unable to attain job. So based on the statistic from the Department of Statistics Malaysia, Malaysia unemployment rate increased to 5.3% in May 2020 from 5% in April 2020. From the slide, we can see that the data as of May 2020, and we use the formula for the unemployment, and we can get the 5.25%, which after round off, we can get 5.3%, which is exactly the same as the rate from the rate we got from the Department of Statistics Malaysia. And this type of unemployment during the COVID-19 is called as cyclical unemployment. This is also known as demand deficit unemployment, and this unemployment occurs when economic decline or recession. So what's the impact on the agriculture sector? Because most of the agriculture sector worker are informal worker. This informal worker doesn't have a secure employment contract. Thus, this makes them difficult to enjoy the incentive from the government during the COVID-19. And the impact is, first, the worker in the agriculture are at risk of losing their job due to the COVID-19. Due to the movement control order, the strict quarantine and the closure of road disrupt logistics and distribution. The closure and the operating hours limit the grocery shop and supermarket, reduce the demand for the agriculture product. Secondly, workers and farmers harvest extra profit opportunity lost. Some of the crops have a certain time to harvest. Normally, at the time of harvest, the farmer will employ more workers to collect the crop. But due to the MCO, the demand for the crops will decrease. When the demand for the crops decrease, the farmer will employ fewer workers as the demand in the market decrease. Lastly, many agricultural workers in the rural sector may expose themselves to vulnerability. As we know, the COVID-19 virus is highly infectious. So some workers will risk themselves and expose themselves to this vulnerability when they meet the bottleneck in expenditure. They might fail to follow the SOP when working, and they are unable to keep the social distancing when working. In extreme cases, some farmers or workers might risk their asset in order to get cash for daily expenditure, such as distressed sale of asset and predatory loans from informal money lenders. When they lend money from the informal money lenders, it will not help them, and it will only burden them even more because they need to pay the informal money lenders a higher interest rate. Next, I will pass the mic to Hazim, and he will explain to us about the government policy and the incentive during this COVID-19 period.
Okay, thank you, Winnie, for explaining about unemployment. Now I will be presenting about government policy and incentive. So the type of policy that government implement during the COVID-19 pandemic is expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy is implemented when there is a deflationary or recessionary gap. Government will increase government expenditure and decrease taxes to aggregate demand. Such an example, government increased the expenditure to protect labor with unpaid leave. Government has introduced an unemployment retention program which known as ERP. The program is a financial assistance for unpaid leave worth 600 ringgit per month for a maximum 6 months. This will help low-wage workers such as agriculture sector because average monthly salaries and wages of workers by agriculture sector has the lowest income among other sector, which is 3,000 ringgit roughly, based on the Source Department of Statistics Malaysia. Next, the government also introduced a wage subsidy to help workers in every sector, but the wage subsidy program is for workers who earn less than 4,000 ringgit per month. And lastly, the government provided loan facilities through the Agro-Food Facility and Bank Simpanan Nasional Microcredit Scheme, which can help cash flow problems for agriculture sector. By the help of the government, agriculture sector can purchase asset or develop new project. These two programs that implemented by the government can be considered as expansionary fiscal policy because government increased their expenditure by creating more development projects, which will increase aggregate demand and can multiply the benefits because production will increase and the agriculture sector can be protected. So next, I will pass the mic to Evander.
Thank you, Hazim. So to proceed with our presentation, I'll give an input about economic growth and recession. Economic growth can be perceived as an increase in the production of goods and services over time. And as economic growth is positive, the companies get more capital. And as they get more capital, they become able to hire more employees. And having these employees with more income, their buying power increase. And if they have more buying power, they are able to afford to get any good or services that they desire. With that said, other companies can keep on getting more profit. On the other hand, there's the economic recession, which happens when more jobs are lost than those that are being generated. And since independence, agriculture has had a high share in the country's gross domestic product. However, this share has been decreasing over the years, and recent reports show that the actual share ranges from 5 to 15% in average. And despite this decrease, the role of agriculture sector in the economy is still outstanding because it reduces the poverty in the country, and it involves over 34% of the poor people of the country. And if this activity is removed from the economic sector, there will be a result of loss of 30 billion Malaysian ringgits, which is about 1.8% of the gross domestic product that is generated. And as the two graphs shows, the growth trend of the agricultural sector has been positive. Agriculture has been giving a positive input to the gross domestic product of the country, and it has reached its peak in 2019, which was about 28,000 in gross domestic product. However, due to the pandemic that we are now facing, there has been a severe recession, reducing the gross domestic product output to 22,000. So to solve this issue that has been caused by the pandemic constraints, the government has to take action, as has been mentioned before by my colleagues. So this applies giving the population incentives. And in addition to that, they could promote the use of better agriculture harvesting technologies, use of the e-commerce and big data, so to make better and safe management of the products transactions throughout the whole country. So using these measurements and others that are to mention, the economic recession that is being caused by the pandemic can be reduced and recovered. So with this said, I end my contribution on economic growth.
Thank you, Evander. Now we end our presentation here. Thank you for your attention.